Well, you can't always get it right. Hey, thanks everyone for coming here. It's terrific. We're here for the Razzles Memorial and the dedication of the bench to Razzle, Nick Dingley. We're going to say something. I'm going to say something, and Andy and Razzle's mother, Tricia, is here, and she's going to speak. And then we're going to move out into the churchyard and dedicate the bench. And other than that, I'm going to attempt to play a couple of pieces on the piano, so we'll have to play that one by ear. But it's terrific that everyone's here. And I think Pete's going to say something in a minute, so I'm going to call him up. I can't even see. Oh, he's over there. I would just like to say, my father, a great memory image I have, when my father was very ill and taken into hospital, I took the Razzle. I was leaving one day and I saw the Razzle biography, and I thought, I wonder if Dad, because my parents knew Raz quite well. He used to come round to the house, and so I took the book up to the hospital for him, and I said, you remember Razzle, don't you? He said, oh yeah, I liked old Razzle. What's he doing now? And I said, Dad, because he was starting to forget things, and he was starting to lose the plot a little bit. And I said, he died a long time ago now, some years ago. And he said, that's right. He said, yeah, it was a car crash, wasn't it? And I said, yeah, that's right. And a great thing that I remember, that he looked at the cover of the book, and he said, he was a good lad. Oh, Razzle, And it was a nice thing for my father to remember Nick. And I had this image of him reading the book, and Nick's face beaming out from this book, with my dad reading it, who's gone also now. So the thing is, I say, if there's any overarching meaning that I can draw out of it at this point, it would be none of us know how much time we've got, in fact, and so the meaning that I would take from it is to seize the day, live for the day, follow your dreams. This is something that Nick certainly did. I'm going to talk about a couple of snapshot things, memories I have of Razzle on the island and in London, but I'm going to call up a chap who was at school. Here's Pete Fry, who was a good friend of Nick's. And do you want to come up, Pete? And he's just going to say a couple of words about his memories of Nick. He's getting his notes out as we speak. Thanks, Pete. Great. Yeah. No justice. What do you want to hire?
As the musicians do, testing, 1, 2, 3. Right. Not used to doing this sort of thing, so I'm a bit nervous. I had a call from Matt on Friday night asking if I would say a few words today, and having spent most of my misspent youth with Nick, I felt honoured to represent the lads of the 1970s Binstead. So here goes. A bench made in Binstead and placed in Binstead Church is a fitting tribute to our adopted Binstead lad from the Midlands. Whilst Nick, as we all know, went on to have international recognition as a drummer called Razzle, to us boys in Binstead, he was just one of the lads called Nick. And I'm sure this bench will get plenty of use from the local lads as they sit and contemplate the memorable times they had with him. As a Binstead lad of the 70s myself, I certainly had plenty of them. We would always meet and hang out every night for years and years at the Binstead Recreation Ground, and in particular, the bench inside the Recreation Ground. So for me, and probably most of the village lads, this bench will be a fitting place for provoking thoughts of Nick. Especially as it was this bench in the Recreation Ground where most of our mischievous, fun-loving activities of the 70s were plotted. And by the way, we also used to use the bench to rest on after we used to run away from those mischievous activities. So on behalf of the Binstead lads, I would like to thank all those who have made this bench happen, and long may the memories live on. Razzle.
Thank you, Pete. That was terrific. Thank you very much for that. Just coming forward from this memory of my father in the hospital, I'm going to go back to being here for Nick's funeral. And about 2 months before Nick went to the States, where he didn't come back from, we came down on the spur of the moment. One day we were sat at the flat and he said, Matt, do you fancy going down to the island? And by this time we had steady girlfriends and we were in bands and doing stuff, and it was, we didn't come down to the island that much at that time, so it was a bit unusual. But I made a good decision, which is I just said, yeah, why not? Let's go down. And we came down to the island, and a really good thing, another good thing happened, which is that we got down to the island. I went off to see my folks. Nick went to see his mum and dad, his adopted mum and dad, and he phoned me up and said, Matt, you wouldn't believe Henry and his mother, Henry and Irene, they'd invited me around for dinner, come around for dinner. Now, Nick had a rocky relationship with particularly with his father at some point, so that was an unusual thing because they associated me with music and they weren't that wild about the whole thing. So this was a big deal. And so I went round for dinner with his parents, and it was a really nice thing because they were kind of the proud parents, and they'd accepted that he was going to follow his dream and be a drummer and do whatever he was doing. Going to America was a big deal. I mean, it was much more of a big deal then than it would be now. And it was kind of a nice family scene, and I have that memory to hold as well. After dinner, we walked up the road and we came by this church, and Nick said to me, have you ever been in the churchyard here? And I said, no, I must have passed this place 100 times. I don't think I've ever been in here. And so we came in to the churchyard here to have a look, and Nick showed me round. Being a local lad, of course, as Pete said, he knew all of the gravestones and all of the places around the churchyard. And he pointed out to me, I've harped on this in other places, but this smuggler's, Thomas Civil, I believe its name was, gravestone that's out in the churchyard. And that stuck with me particularly. I remember him telling me about this and reading the inscription. And a couple of months later, I was here for his funeral, and it's almost as though he was showing me around the churchyard, that he was going to be in 2 months, So, that was a slightly uncanny thing, make of it what you will. But going on that thread, going back even earlier, rewinding, not so long after I met Nick, something that we were both interested in other than playing music was ghosts. We used to go to haunted places around the island, and he had the Isle of Wight ghost book, and we'd go and visit all these different places. And one of the favourites was a place called Cape Knighton, and which you'll know. Some acknowledgements here. And one time we were down there, and a great thing that I'm sure you all know with Nick was, it was a great one for let's get the atmosphere right, let's get this right. And so we're trying to get, we're trying to evoke the atmosphere. The idea was the ghostly gateposts are supposed to appear, and a horse and carriage drive up the driveway, you know, was the old legend. And we were just discussing this stuff, and the atmosphere wasn't right. And he went into the Mini, he had a Mini, he went into the car to look for a cassette players in those days, of, you know, of the right music to evoke this mood. And all he had was stuff like the Ramones, Johnny Thunders. It just wasn't appropriate for what we're looking for. And so he resorted to the radio. He turned it onto the radio, and there was silence, and then a tune started that was just perfect. And we both sat there in silence listening to this piece of music, which I'm slightly ashamed to say neither of us even knew what the title of it was at the time. But I'm going to have a go, and I say have a go, at playing this as a tribute to Nick. And this is a tune that came on. Thank you, thank you. I'd like to now call up a chap who was in a band with Nick in London before he joined Hanoi Rocks. And by the way, I was speaking at the band just this morning, and the band can't be here. They're recording currently, and they're doing TV stuff, and they're up to their eyes in it. They send their best wishes and best regards. Sammy Yaffa said he's looking forward to the first opportunity. He said he's going to come down and drink a bottle of Newcastle Brown Ale, sat on the bench. And I said, as long as you dispose of the bottle sensibly in the provided receptacles, that's fine. But you know, that's nice, and they send all their best wishes, and that will certainly be coming down to visit the bench. So that was a nice thing. I'm going to hand it over to a guy who was in a band called The Dark with Nick prior to him joining Hanoi Rocks. And this is Andy Riff. Thank you.
Cheers, Matt. Hello, people. Nice to see so many people here. I didn't expect to see so many, you know. I thought 10, 12 and that'd be it. So it just shows you how much loved he was, you know. I won't talk for long because there's not a lot to say, but I will say what's important. I met Raz on the 16th of the 10th, 1980, when we played at the Pie Ball, Islington. We was top of the bill. Demons were at support, and another band called the Mandy's, which Razzle actually drummed for one night because I didn't have a drummer, and that was another night. But we became really close friends, and he got to really like my band. And once I got to know him, right, we was all, I think we were doing another gig and he was there, and he said that he wanted my drummer's seat. I said, well, I don't know about that. I says, he's over there, if you want to go and ask him for it. So he did. He said, right, you know, I'm after your seat. So Jamie turned around and said, well, if you want it, well, you can have it. So I kept my word, and when Jamie left the band, I auditioned him. And I worked it to death, I'll tell you, yeah, blisters. But he made him a good drummer, and he fitted in Hanoi Rocks, because he didn't have to play as fast, you know, but he was technically better than what he was. So that was good. He joined the band in '81, November, and we didn't do a gig until the 5th of the first '82 with him. We'd done 11 gigs with him, and he couldn't stop, you know, idolising the band. I just thought that this is going to be it. Once we got Razzle in, I thought this was going to be our time, but it wasn't. You know, as things went on, we split up. He went on to join Hanoi, but all I'm saying was, he's a lovely bloke, right? He was like a brother to me. He always spoke highly of me. He was in interviews, he'd be talking about me. I said, don't talk about me, talk about you. I will talk about himself. That was quite nice, but all the fans loved him, and he's sadly missed till this day by me and all my friends, family, fans, and I keep his name alive. Though we was the lower band, we're still there as good as the other band to keeping, you know, his name up in lights, you know. His favourite record was All This and More. It's the last track I ever wrote for The Dark. He's not on the album or nothing like that, but we actually, the last thing we've done, we recorded it. I didn't even know it was being recorded. So there's a legacy, him with us, which a lot of people would like. It's hard to get, but I really should do that because through my help. The last thing I'm going to say, he came, he saw, he conquered, and left us, but he's still here with us, you know. That's what I'm going to say.
Thanks, Andy. And finally, I'd like to invite Tricia, who's Nick's biological mother and a good friend of mine and everyone else's, and is going to say a few words. Trish.
Thank you for coming, first of all. It's lovely to see so many people. We only expected 10 or 12. But I remember Nick as a smiling, dimpled baby before I was coerced into signing him away for adoption. And it was several years before I could think of him without tears. I lived my life waiting for that knock on the door, which meant he had returned. According to Sammy Yaffa, he was on the search for me and had found his original birth certificate, but his return was not meant to be. The great singularity wanted him back. So this is a thank you message. I'd like first of all to thank the Dingleys and all his childhood friends and teachers on the island for looking after him and teaching him when I could not. Also, my specially warm thanks go to Matt Kellett, Sammy Yaffa, Chris, his fiancée, Andy Riff, Rena Parmeter, my other friend Rena, who's helped me through this a lot, Sean Manton, the archivist of Hanoi, Nick Toogood and Adam Up, and Patrick Sigmund, who sent me his old leather jacket, and all the Remembering Razzle and Hanoi Rocks group members who knew Nicky as Razzle. To those people I owe my greatest thanks, as their stories and pictures made him come alive to me again as a fun-loving, caring individual. I'd also like to thank the many people who donated for Razzle's bench, including Jason and his customers at the Shakespeare Head. The initial idea was not only for me to contribute something to his memory, but to provide somewhere for all the visitors to his grave to have somewhere to sit and meditate. So thank you all Razzle and Hanoi fans out there who contributed money for the bench. Once the money had been collected, I handed the hard work over to Matt, who has badgered his way through COVID shutdown and tackled all the difficulties. It was decided that the bench should be a two-seater, and eventually Matt found the right carpenter to construct it. Matt and I collaborated via the telephone on the design. which again was time-consuming, as the piece of wood we wanted couldn't be found. Wood was short, and we thought we'd have to go to the mainland, but eventually it all came together, and the lovely little bench with the Hanoi Rose and memorial plaque was put into storage to await this day. Last, but by no means least, my heartfelt and most sincere thanks go to Hilary and all the church members who gave their permission and employed helpers to clear a space for the bench. I thank them also for putting up with the years of devoted fans trampling through their beautiful churchyard and leaving cans of beer, drumsticks, flowers and incense at Razzle's memorial. To close, I would like to say that I believe that no one really dies while they remain loved. Binstead Churchyard is the place where I can honestly say I feel my son's spirit close to me. And before I too shuffle off this mortal coil, I hope I can visit the island many times more and sit on Razzle's bench and enjoy the peace and love in this beautiful place. Thanks.
Thanks everyone. Just one final thing before we move outside. I'd like to thank Steve Hull, the carpenter. Steve, if you'd like to stand up, and he's here with his wife Karen. This guy bailed us out when we had the Razzle bench Mark 1, and believe me, that was a problem. And this is the guy who made the bench we got now, and his wife Karen. And thanks very much, guys. And we'll proceed out when you're ready.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. God of the living and the dead, help us to honour the life and hope and memory of Nicholas Charles Dingley, Razzle, remembering past times and our relationships with him now gone from us. We dedicate this bench to his memory. We honour the life he continues to give us through music, and as we tell and retell his story in our congregation and in our communities. This bench is a sign of remembrance, but we dedicate it also as a sign of hope and a sign of God's grace to us. May all who use it find rest and peace in this place. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, and very dear. As you were, you will always be, treasured forever in our memory.